Thanks, Brian. The future is change, and change is scary. Here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to pack up your stuff real quick, and I want you to find a seat on the other side of the room next to someone that you don't know that well. Could you do that for me real quick? All right, you can stop. How'd that feel? Microseconds, and every part of your body came alive. Your brain, everything started to fire. Who is the South African, and what is he doing to us? It's so early. I've barely had my first cup of coffee. When we get asked to change, move positions, I was like, there was an overall, we don't like him, Brad. So quick. For some of you, you're early adopters, you're like, yeah, let's do this. But there was very few of those, very few. When we're asked to change positions, it takes everything inside of us and it begins to start to move parts of us that were asleep and parts of us that are angry, frustrated, annoyed, parts of us trying to work out what the heck is going on. Does he not know this is the seat I've been sitting in for a day and a half, or half, as you would say, and now he's asking me to move? Not cool. Change is scary. It is so scary. Of course, we all have hopes and dreams, and I believe most of you in this room are here because you have hopes and dreams of a better future for your team, for your leadership, and for your organization. We have these hopes and dreams. There's things we want and we desire, and those are the things that will pull you into the future. Change stands in the way, and change is scary. So as Brad says, I want to take a slightly different approach, but I want you to hold on. Because I want to go a little bit back, because to engage the future well requires a few bedrocks. We have to learn how to face loss. To face the future well, we're going to have to learn how to face the past and to face the dark. And I know what you're thinking. When do we get started? This sounds amazing. It's scary, I know, but stay with me, because there's a treasure. There's something on the other side of these three things that will offer you the foundation to have the hopes and dreams that you so want to actualize. Change stands between your now and your future. We cannot escape that. Something will change. You will leave this room, and something else will happen. It will happen. When a leader or a team or an organization tries to avoid change or pretend what I'm saying is not true, I'll tell you what I become, and maybe you can resonate. I become anxious, avoidant, forceful, kind of start to make people do what I need them to do. I become short-sighted. The decisions that I make become so short-sighted. Whatever's in front of my face becomes what has to happen because I'm so trying to harness or limit the power of change in my leadership, in my team, in my company, that I have to become so controlling and forceful. Exhausting. But I believe, from what I've heard, that there are people in this room, there is an organization that wants a stronger, healthier, more hopeful future. And for those of us here that want to better prepare ourselves for the inevitability of change, we want to grow our capacities to hold the weight of bigger dreams and hopes. For those of us that are here today, which include me, for my own life and for my own work and the things that I do, I hope that we draw courage and strength as we go in today to learn how to face loss, face the past, and face the dark. The future requires facing loss. Saying yes to one thing today, when you leave this conference today, you would have said yes to a whole group of new things, which means you're going to have to say no to a few other things that you brought in here. Saying yes to one thing often means putting something else down. I try to have everything. It's like, what's that saying, you can't have your cake and eat it? Does anyone know what that even means? But you know what it kind of means, but none of us do. But at some point, embracing the future means letting go of something. So there's loss. And we don't like loss. We want it all. But to fully embrace, we're going to have to learn how to honor and grieve what was lost. I remember becoming a dad for the first time. My second child, Ella, was 3 months old. I got married pretty young. I'm a few months away from 40, but I got married really young. I needed that green card. I'm kidding. I really was trying to get in this side of the wall. You see, I got married relatively young, and then we accidentally kept having babies. No idea how and where they kept coming from. But the problem with that is that my wife and I had hopes and dreams. You know, I'm 24 years old. I had hopes and dreams that her and I would go travel the world, that we would spend money on travels and food, not diapers, babysitters. And all of a sudden, we keep having these babies. My daughter Ella was 3 months old. And I remember the moment one day in our apartment, San Clemente, California, where it all came to a head. And it's these moments what I call facing the wall, where your will and opposing wills come to meet, they come to fight, and they're looking for some kind of surrender. The only problem, it was me versus me that day. And I'm pacing around the apartment that day, and I got a three-month-old, and my son, I can't remember how old he is by then, he's probably 2-3 years old, and I'm pacing around, like me versus me. Don't you know all these hopes and dreams that you wanted for yourself? And I had to face those things and call them out. And there was a certain moment where I was shaking my fists to the sky, to heaven, to go, this is not what I signed up for. And all of a sudden, I found myself face down on the carpet, crying and crying and crying. It's like my insides were trying to find their way out through my eyes. My whole body, it went from like petition to surrender to grief. And now I'm crying into the carpet, and there's parts of me that are coming out. Well, what's coming out? Those things that I wished I'd had. And I had a moment to memorialize those hopes and dreams. Because you see, it's not like, oh, well, I just didn't have them, or they weren't such a big deal. It was a massive deal. And they needed and they deserved to be honored. And sometimes the past deserves its place. There's a reason why we have a funeral. There's also a reason why the West, we do it really quick, while the rest of the world doesn't. They take their time to grieve. We avoid it. But I cried and I cried and I cried till there were no more tears left. Breathed out every last breath that I had, and I remember standing to my feet, and I breathed in being a dad. And I stood to my feet and I was a dad. The moment I became a dad, my second child, Ella, was 3 months old. No, I became a dad before then, but that was the moment. That was the moment where I surrendered. And when I stood up, this is probably right around that time, something had changed. Now my behaviors, I was still changing diapers, my longings for travels and all these other things, they were still there, but they took a while. But there was a moment to memorialize, and it became the change moment that began to impact the rest of my life. And I've never turned back. After 4 kids, I figured out how to turn that off. We had 2 more after that. I really gave myself to it, dad body and all. I just went for this whole dad thing. But that was the beautiful moment. So sometimes going into the future requires facing loss. How do you feel about loss? Secondly, the future requires facing the past. And now you're going, gosh, he's talking about loss. Now we're going to the past. This is way too much for this time of the morning. But going forward sometimes requires going backwards. And those that are afraid to go backwards are going to miss out on a whole lot of stuff. I don't know about you, but I'll speak for myself. I have plenty of dead bodies in my past, leadership failures, things that I regret, things that I was proud of that ended, things that didn't end so well. There's a lot of things going on in my past. I can go all the way back, and I'm like, gosh, I don't want to go there. I don't want to see that. But I believe that a stronger future awaits for those that are courageous to be willing to go back to the past with someone, preferably, that can help guide you so that you can harvest the gold that is hiding back there. Because we're always looking for gold in the future. What's out there? What's out there? You will never believe what's hiding in your past. The treasures that have long been buried and hidden and abandoned. Gold, treasure. There's also healing and wisdom that can come from this experience. So the past can then therefore inform your present, which will therefore impact your future. Another story, I remember being, how old was I now? I'm maybe about 35, 36 years old. I'm finishing up my master's degree, and like I said, I got 4 kids now, 2 more than before. I'm exhausted. Anyone running, chasing, growing, killing, dragging at home? Repeat. Next day. Running, dragging, dreaming, killing. Repeat. Next day. I'm just going for it with all the energy that a young man has. I'm just giving myself to the world. But then life found me. It caught up to me. Ever had those moments where life catches up to you? Your schedule, your pace, your posture? My wife sat me down on the bed and said she wanted to share something with me. Can't wait. It was that kind of, I want to share something with you. I delayed it for 2 weeks. It's amazing. We had like a vacation in between. And eventually we're sitting on the edge of the bed. I'm attentive. And she says, "You're a great dad. And you're a good husband and you care for us." She says, "I know you're committed to us and you love us." But she says, "Somewhere I've lost you. I see you working so hard, but I miss you. I miss you. And I'm just showing up boldly and courageously to tell you that today. I miss you." There was something about her boldness and her vulnerability that was both confronting and beautiful. And she was right, because I'm starting to look down and realize how many of my body parts are now made out of steel, kind of like the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz. I've traded so many parts of who I am to become a machine so that I can produce, so that I can succeed and I can perform, and I can come home and do that again and again and again. And what my wife was saying was, I see a Tin Man who's lost his heart somewhere along the way, and I just want his heart back. I just want my husband's heart back. She wasn't being ungrateful for the things we had built. It wasn't an accusation. It was an invitation to, can we recover some of the things that have been lost while we're chasing, performing. And she was right. And I looked down at parts of who I've become. I was lonely for myself. I missed myself. Really confronting moment. 4 or 5 years ago. So I show up in Jeff's office for, I needed someone to guide me. I didn't know where to go, how to do this. I show up in Jeff's office for the first time and thought he could help guide me. And Jeff's become a friend since then. But at the time, I showed up to look for somebody that could guide me into some of these things, because I had no idea where to find and recover parts of myself that had been lost. But I just knew I wanted to go on that recovery mission. So I tell Jeff, I paint the picture of what happened on the bed, and I'm telling him this and that. And I give him a couple self-advice tips, like, here's what I think you should tell me, and here's how I should work. Like, I know what I need. And give me 3 pointers. Like, I'm going to leave you at this conference with 3 points to go out there and kill it. And, you got this. Like, you can recover it. Here's how you do it. Like, here's how you do it. Give me something to do. Problem is, I've been doing. That's why I lost heart. I'm so tired of doing. So I offered him all that advice. Apparently, he didn't need it. He didn't seem too impressed. He just kind of sat there. And then he began to describe, he said, all right, I'm going to describe the pathway that I believe you need to go on if you want to become the person you're talking about. He goes, you have a sewer drain, right? Like in your life, like there's like a sewer drain, like your past and all this. I go, yeah. Wow, how do you know? He goes, we're going to have to crack the lid of that thing. And it's dark and it's messy and it's gloomy. And he's like, and you're going to have to get in there. And he's like, you're going to have to go face some of those things in your past. And I looked at him and I said, no, that's a terrible idea. Thank you, though. I definitely had better ideas than you. And he compassionately responded to my resistance, and he said, I get it. I promise you, I get it. And he sat back in his chair and kindly and compassionately said, you're young enough, you've got enough energy and willpower, go take another lap. I'll see you back in 5 years. Well, that threw me back into my chair and just, he's right. He's right, go take another lap. You see, there was a part of my past in my life that I was so afraid to go back to. And here was somebody saying my way forward was to go into the past. And I was resisting, and he's saying, I get it, go take another lap. And as I sat there and I breathed in the reality of what he was saying, I hated it. I hated the reality. But he did something. And I want you to think of the people on your team. I want you to think of the people in your organization. Jeff leaned in like this, and he said, I'll go with you. I'll go with you. And those were the words that I needed to know, that somebody would go with me to those parts that have long been alienated and disowned. And I took a deep breath, and I said, okay, let's go. Okay, I'll be a dad. Okay, let's go. Thirdly, facing the future requires facing the dark. You never know what tomorrow is going to bring. You don't know what's going to jump out at you. I didn't know where coffee was this morning. That's what I woke up to. I was like, is coffee in my room? Oh, I missed my room. Like, the world keeps us guessing. It could be something good or it could be something bad. Who knows? So facing the future means that we have to become good at facing the dark, the unknown. You could win the lottery tomorrow, or you could have a stroke. April 3rd, 2019, a couple months ago. Just a few months, I'm co-leading a leadership group, 15 business executives in my house for a leadership cohort experience. We're 7 months in. 3 months together, three hours that day. At least that's what I'm told, because I have no memory of that day whatsoever. We get done with the meeting. Everyone leaves around 2 p.m. from what I can tell. And I began to confusingly wander around my house for likely an hour or two. My wife was in California on a trip, catching her breath with some friends. She was set to check into the Montage Laguna Beach, have a great time. She called me. Somehow I miraculously picked up the phone, and she knew something was wrong. A few months ago, I was confused, repeating myself and not making much sense at all. I know what you're thinking, but isn't that normal? No, more than normal. And she goes, uh-oh, something's wrong. Something's wrong. She called one of my friends to rush over and check on me. She called the ambulance, and I was found sitting on a couch repeating myself. The ambulance came. I'm whisked away in front of my children that I was meant to be looking after. They were coming home from school. I looked on the Ring doorbell. I'm like confusingly walking around while kids are coming off the bus. My friend shows up. They misdiagnosed me with a confusional migraine because I went to the B team hospital. And a couple hours later, they worked out that I'd had 5 strokes. You see, 2 blood vessels on the back of my neck had been damaged somehow. It's the type of strokes young people have. Somehow I'd fractured these blood vessels. And when they try to heal themselves, the blood clots got dislodged and went to my brain and exploded. Just happened. Couldn't predict it, couldn't change it, don't remember hurting it. But somewhere in the prior weeks, I had damaged my neck. Leading 15 business leaders into the greatness of their lives by lunch and lying in a hospital room on a 2 to 3 minute loop by night. What a future. Unpredictable, dark. My room was filled that day with several men, Brad being one of them was there, who rushed to be there with me. The funny, not so funny thing that happened was this 2 to 3 minute loop was happening for about 2 days. Where am I? How did I get here? What happened? Where's Natalie? How are the kids? Repeat. Where am I? How did I get here? Where's Natalie? Where are the kids? Where am I? 2 days. Terrifying. Well, not for me. I don't remember it. There was also a couple hours of carrying patients from these men and others that were in the room that day, because my wife was still on her way back from California. But they started offering me some creative answers to the questions that I was asking. They kind of got done with my loop. I think after about 5 hours, they were like, all right, let's have some fun. Why am I here? The answers to those questions that they apparently gave me cannot be repeated in this talk. I'm glad they had fun. I don't even remember them being there, so what do I care? After 4 days in the hospital with loops and testings and scans and more, they discharged me with a bottle of aspirin, thinned my blood, booked me an appointment to rescan my neck in 3 months and said, all right, catch you then. Right side of my body was numb. My eyesight was half gone. I couldn't quite see properly. Super fatigued. Awake for 3 to 5 hours a day if I was lucky. Slept, exhausted. My life had changed instantly in the dark. I went back now in August to rescan my neck, and they're like, your neck's healed. I said, when do I come back? The guy's like, you don't need to come back. What? He's like, yeah, I mean, you can come back in a year if you want. I'm like, I don't know, how good's your insurance? He was an older doctor, so he probably made his money. He didn't need to give me 6 appointments that I didn't need to go to. But he said, hey, you're good. I'm really, really tired, and this is supposedly normal. My brain is still catching up to my body to decide if they want to be friends. They're still negotiating. It takes about a year. I'm so tired right now. I can't believe I'm doing a morning session. I'm exhausted. But I promise you, this feeling is not normal. They tell me it's normal. This does not feel normal. Different. My future is different. So what now? The future is change, and change is scary. If growing our capacity as leaders for the future includes facing loss, facing the past, and facing the dark, how do we begin to do those things? How do you face loss? With acceptance and grief. With honor, acceptance, and grief. Even the best steak dinner comes to an end and has to be grieved, especially steak dinners. That last bite. You're watching a sunset with someone. You know that moment, it's like, oh, this is so beautiful. You're actually not even seeing it because they're on their phones and everyone's taking pictures and you're missing the whole thing anyway. But eventually the sun sets and then there's this kind of like ruminating feeling, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's night now. That was over. Every beautiful moment comes to an end. That's loss. Whether it's a steak dinner or a sunset, something you hope for. We have to get good at loss. Loss is one of the most universal feelings in the world, and we avoid it like the plague. If you don't want to face loss, you have to do what I do all the time, is you start to create a thermostat version of your life. Like, let's be honest, in America, you guys love your AC units, right? Like 70 to 73 degrees. I'm from South Africa. We either can't afford it or we just put up with it. It's just like we just do what we can. But 70 to 73, it's like year-round. That's how we want to live. So then we begin to create a life like that. How do I just create a 70 to 73? But here's the problem. If life goes to 79, you don't even know what it's like to be there. So you're doing everything you can to panic to bring it back down to what's safe and secure. So we get ourselves into the safe zone. Here's the problem. On both sides of that thermostat, if you're not willing to be sad, it limits your ability to be glad. You ever been with someone and they're like, I'm going to miss you. And you're like, it'll be fine. I'll see you later. Or maybe a family member or something. No, you legitimately miss them. And if you care about them, it's kind of a sad thing that you got to say goodbye. So to allow yourself to go down, it pushes your range to go up. And maybe we can become people that live like 65 to 75. We could get crazy. Once in a while, like, life will throw us a broken AC unit and we'll just like figure it out. We'll wake up in a hospital bed with a 2 to 3 minute loop complaining about it or forgetting about it. But for the most part, how do we push our range to handle change a little higher and a little lower than what we have? We like to hold on to things to feel safe. I was facing a dilemma that day in my apartment, crying into the carpet, to be or not to be a dad. I've seen 50 and 60-year-old people that I think have still never made that decision. I worked with, when I moved to California, I worked with a couple hundred youth, and there were just some parents that I went, I don't know if you've ever done that. Not judgmental, just watching them go, I want my life still, and I have children. And then I saw others that painfully had to accept it. Maybe it took 2 years into their kids' life to decide, I'll be a parent. And now they're engaged and locked to be parent. Dr. Susan David says acceptance is a prerequisite for change. This means giving permission for the world to be as it is, because it's only when we stop trying to control the universe that we make peace with it. We still don't like the things we don't like. We just cease to be at war with them. And once the war is over, change can begin. What are you warring with today? What are you fighting with today? In your leadership, in your personal life, in this organization? What are you fighting with? What are you holding on to that may need to have some tears shed into the carpet so that you can stand up and embrace what's new? You know, in my doctorate studies, I come across some great research from Uncle Rico in Napoleon Dynamite. How much you want to make a bet that I can throw a football over them mountains? I wish I had the accent. Yeah, if Coach would have put me in the fourth quarter, we would have been state champions. No doubt in my mind. Middle-aged man stuck, holding on to the hopes and dreams that he had. Uncle Rico, Napoleon Dynamite, living the dream 30 years later. If only Coach put me in the fourth quarter, we would have been state champions. What are some of those things that you have to surrender, both personally and professionally? They need to be honored and grieved so that you can make space for the future. There's only so much that we can hold within us. It takes a lot of energy and a lot of capacity. You can't have it all. And honor and grief is scary, but it's also beautiful. How do you face the past? By revisiting it. How you respond in the present is usually informed by your past. Bottling up or burying your past or trying to push negative thoughts about your previous world, your previous leadership, your previous life, trying to push those thoughts out of your head does take up a lot of bandwidth. It's exhausting. Your brain is emotionally tagging every aspect of your life as you go. You're tagging me right now. So I think about him, this, that. Yeah, here's what he's saying. You're just putting tags on this and you're filing it away. The problem is often we try to exile so many of those bad parts of who we are. We exile them, we don't want to see them, we put them into the sewer drain, and we kind of close the lid, and when we reinforce it, and then we build a house upon it, and then we build a family upon it, and then we wonder why we're waking up at 35 years old with a wife or a coworker or a friend that goes, you're just really lonely to be with. You seem disconnected. You're really successful, but are you a human? And sometimes we're not. I clean up my past like my kids clean up their bedroom. Golly, it's the hardest part of parenting. It's like clean your room. Done. Run out the door. They go to play with their friends. You go up there and you're like, what? How is this clean? It's like old food and things out of place, and like you open a drawer and it's like, there's like everyone's got one or two of those drawers in their house. The drawers that like, it's no man's land, right? My kids have rooms like that. And my wife and I are in there every week, like work in those rooms. And their rooms still look like those drawers. It's a lot of work. When Jeff leaned in, I'll go with you. God, that's what I needed to know. Jeff says this. He's referencing the Tin Man and the Wizard of Oz, but it felt like this was me that day. He's gone from being a human being that wants a life where his heart is in his work, and his work has to do with what he has a heart about. and now he's just a working machine that doesn't know how to stop. Disconnected from himself, from others, and the very reason he's out there in the first place. What if facing the past for this organization could change the sobering reality, harvest the gold, and this organization could become something like this? The leaders of U.S. youth soccer are human beings who want a meaningful life. That's why you're in this room. And their hearts are in their work. And their work has to do with what they have a heart about. They are becoming a deeply connected organization where everyone involved shares a bold, unified vision and commitment to face the future together, providing a path for every player. What if human beings, we build organizations, we build businesses, we build empires, and I know for me, sometimes it's at the expense of my humanness. Even coming here today, a wife, a friend, they said, don't forget to be human. Got to stand up on stage and deliver something for you. Share something. These are my stories. How can I be a human and offer my humanness to you? Not as snake oil, but as like, this is me, and this is my story. Do you resonate? Have you given up things in your life? Has the future been scary for you? Have you had unexpected things happen to you? What if? What if we're human beings that come together and we want a meaningful life and our hearts are in this work and the work has to do with what we have a heart about and we're becoming deeply connected and everyone shares in a bold, unified vision and we have a commitment to that vision? We're going to face the future together. I'll go with you. Providing a path for every player. How do you face the dark? With others. Where am I? How did I get here? Where's Natalie? My wife's trying to get back from California, but my room that day was filled with men that found their way to be there. To be in that room with me. A moment of darkness and confusion, and there were people there. We didn't send out a Facebook update to say, looking for people to care for Rob, who's now arrived in hospital. Praying for him, praying for him, praying for him. Send money. No. Those men were ready. They were postured for the dark, for the future, for the unpredictability. Rob's in hospital, Rob's in hospital. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Whew. Team assembled. The work wasn't done on the way in the ambulance. The work was done before I showed up to the hospital. So to prepare for a strong future is to begin to prepare your team. Because you never know what tomorrow may bring, good or bad. Heck, I wish it was the lottery. Wouldn't be here today. I was going to say Bahamas, but they've had a hard time. Think about that. There were people planned to go there. There's people that live there. And they're waking up to a new future. I guarantee you one they never imagined. And now they're beginning to rally. Have they got their people? Where am I? Dazed and confused. In my most vulnerable state as a human being. Surrounded by people who mattered and belonged to me. People who eventually began to tell me horrible things about why I was there. They love me that much to have fun with me. But people who love me, people who fight for me, people who believe in me. And how was I accomplishing and succeeding in that moment? I wasn't. What was I producing in that moment? Nothing. And they were there. Those are the people I'm talking about that we need to face the dark. With others, those kinds of people. There are plenty of studies coming out about the loneliness epidemic in America. I got kids, I read a lot about that. Technology is part of it, life's a part of it. I think part of it is we've taught them how to be so independent. It's like one of the great values of this country. How do we be independent? And so we learn how to go out and do life alone. But how do we begin to find our people? Because yes, independence, but we were also designed to be in community. Brene Brown says, when we feel isolated, disconnected, and lonely, we try to protect ourselves. In that mode, we want to connect, but our brain is attempting to override connection with self-protection. That means less empathy, more defensiveness, more numbing, and less sleeping. I don't know where you are professionally or personally right now, how isolated or disconnected you feel. Maybe within the part of your organization that you represent, or within the community that you have, or at home with the people that come alongside you in your personal trials and struggles. But regardless, we turn into the self-protection mode. And then we'll become less empathetic, more defensive, begin to numb ourselves, 70 to 73 degrees, can't go higher, can't go lower, and less sleep, especially if you started having kids as early as I did. I haven't slept in years. It's like killing me. We're just starting to sleep. Who is gathered around you? Who strengthens you? Who fights for you? Who loves your soul? What a strange question. Who offers you wisdom? Those 4 questions. Who strengthens you? Who fights for you? Who loves your soul? And who offers you wisdom? You find people in those categories that you matter and belong to, you are ready for the future. You are ready for the dark. Lottery or strokes, you are locked and loaded with people where you matter and belong. God, it's going to be good. I want to close with this. The future is change, and change is scary. But if you are a courageous set of leaders, as I've heard, you're a bold organization from what I've been told. Why? Because from what I'm hearing is that you are wanting to chase big dreams and big hopes in the midst of an uncertain future. That is courage. You see, we think courage is being fearless. Courage is being so afraid and being so hopeful and bringing those two things together. If you weren't afraid, you don't need courage. A courageous person is afraid. That's what made them courageous. Just be fearless. Okay, that's being not human. Like, this is really scary. And we really want a future. You take those two and you integrate them. Now that's courage. Hey, I'm sitting in front of you today. My wife, that day on the bed, that was a courageous act. I'm so afraid of what this man-machine could tell me or do, or how he could respond, or how he could react. Truth. I'm getting in the way of the empire that we're building. Truth. That's scary. I also really want him, and I want a life with him. Faith, hope. Bring it together. Courage. Courageous. Okay, I'll be a dad. May we leave here today beginning to learn how to honor and accept and grieve the things that we are struggling to let go of so that we can make space for new. Challenge number 1. Challenge number 2, may you begin to draw the courage, find the person or people to face and reprocess and harvest some of the gold from your past. Gifts waiting. And lastly, may you find those group of people who will walk into the unpredictable, scary, beautiful future that you have together. The leaders of U.S. Youth Soccer are human beings who want a meaningful life. And their hearts are in their work. Their work has to do with what they have a heart about. Gosh, that organization, they're becoming a deeply connected organization where everyone involved shares in a bold, unified vision. And they're providing a path for every player, and they are committed to a future together. Your future starts here. Thank you.